7 o'clock. I will call to order the Enfield Inland Wetlands and Watercourse Agency meeting for Tuesday, June 6, 2023. Pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Fire evacuation procedures. In the event of a fire, go out these doors, take a left, go down the stairs, and exit the building, move away from the building, or you can just go out the back doors there and go away from the building. Roll call.
Donna Corbin-Savinsky.
Absent.
Kevin Zorda.
Here.
Virginia Higley, here. Robert Hendrickson.
Here.
Ann Collins, absent. Nancy Martin.
Here.
Phil Kober.
Here.
Sean Dean, absent.
All right, thank you. All right, next on the agenda is public communications. Anybody, you want to go ahead?
Mr. Chair, before we get started, I'd like to move number 13, report of planning staff updates, to under 7 to be 7A.
I have a motion to move. Report.
Second.
Second. And a second to move the report of planning staff to after the town attorney report. Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Kevin Zorda.
Yes.
Virginia Higley, yes. Robert Hendrickson.
Yes.
Nancy Martin.
Yes.
Phil Kober.
Sure.
5 in favor, the motion passes.
Okay.
All right, and approval of minutes. Oh, I'm sorry. Public, yeah, I'm jumping way ahead, aren't I? All right, public communications. Anybody in the audience have anything to discuss not on the agenda? Anybody in the audience with anything not on the agenda? And one last time, anything to offer not on the agenda? All right, and agent correspondence. Anything on my left?
No.
Anything on my right?
No.
Excellent. And approval of minutes now.
So moved for May 16th.
I have a motion and a second.
Duly seconded.
And any discussion?
Chair, I just had one question on page 4 on 38 Post Office Road. I wasn't sure if we left it at they were to do nothing until submitted a formal application, or we agreed on seeding. I don't remember. I remember some discussion there.
Georgie, do you remember that discussion? Did we say that he could put down some seed to stabilize the bare soil? Do you remember that? Yeah.
38 Post Office
38.
Road. Spazzarini.
Spazzarini.
It's noted here that we said absolutely nothing until, but I thought we discussed
I'll have to
possibly
watch the
seeding.
YouTube video again. If you want to continue the minutes, you can, and I can verify it in the meantime.
Okay.
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 Move to continue.
All right, I make a motion that we table approval of the minutes for May 16th, 2023.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to table the minutes for May 16th. Any discussion? Roll call.
Kevin Zorda.
Yes.
Virginia Higley, yes. Robert Hendrickson.
Yes.
And Nancy Martin.
Yes.
Phil Kober.
Yes.
5 in favor. Motion passes. All right. We have the town attorney's report for May 25th, 2023. We won't read it, but it is there in public. All right. We'll move on to the report of planning staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have a couple things to report. One being The Jarmock family has purchased a new property above 139 Town Farm Road. They have filled out the DPN application, and I've been going back and forth with them on guidance because right now it was wooded. They wish to clear it for cropland. I did receive an email from his attorney, Derek Donnelly, and I received a map, which I just handed copies to you tonight. It was very generous in the fill out the application, so we had the basic information. But ultimately, after reading the narrative by their harvester from Moosehead and looking at the site plan, they are outside the 100-foot upland review area. I have it in writing from Derek that there will be no work within those areas, and I have advised them that if they come across any issues or if anything changes, to come back to us. So you have those copies there. The second thing is we received a decision recently about a Supreme Court case with the Clean Water Act. It's just an update about what's going on right now in the federal world regarding the Clean Water Act. They are currently questioning navigable waters of the United States, and they're trying to figure out where that federal determination lies between the Army Corps of Engineers and the EPA. So we are not sure if and how that would affect state or municipal jurisdiction for wetlands. Just something to keep in mind that this might come across us, might not. If it does, we will get a legal opinion to verify how to move forward on that. And I did give you a copy of a report about that Supreme Court case. The last thing I have to report is at the land use training on June 1st. It was mentioned by the chair of wetlands and Commissioner Higley that they would like an executive session for July 18th to go over all the legal opinions that we received about the DPNs not having petition periods, about when to require consultants for applications and so forth. And just want to let you know that July 18th would be the best date for our town attorney to make that. And that is all I have. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
No, that's good. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. We'll move on to number 8, continued public hearings. IW number 677, 92 Post Office Road, application for the development of a single-family home, Winbrook Homes, LLC, owner applicant, map 47, lot 10, R44 zone.
Mr. Chair, if you mind, before we begin, I would like to just give an update with my staff report.
Please do.
So I've been doing a lot of research. This public hearing has been going on for quite some time now, and there's been a lot of questions asked, a lot of confusions raised. So I did a quick synopsis of everything that's been going on behind the scenes. So just to recap, at the May 2nd meeting, the Wetlands Agency had requested an off-site delineation request for 90 Post Office Road, Lot 1. Staff requested a legal opinion the next day to verify that there is no statutory authority that gives the Inland Wetlands Agency the power to require any work off-site on property owned by third parties. This includes town-owned properties. An email was received stating that this is true from our town attorney, which I believe I gave to you in your packets, and included some case laws as reference to this matter, as other towns have had similar issues and questions about requiring off-site matters. Therefore, the Wetlands Agency cannot require an off-site delineation or any additional work on properties owned by third parties. Furthermore, the town of Enfield has denied permission for the soil scientist to access 90 Post Office Road to delineate the wetlands, which I gave you that email as well. The checklist on the wetlands application that states wetlands located on adjacent properties within approximately 100 feet of subject property must be removed from the Inland Wetlands and Watercourse Agency application. In the wetlands regulations, under section 17.2, it states, if there is a conflict between the provisions of these regs and the provisions of the act shall govern, which is what we follow and abide by, hence the description changes for the DPNs. Going forward, this item will be removed from the application since the act shall govern. It was brought to light that there may be the presence of wetlands than what the applicant's soil scientist has found. Just to recap, wetlands are not identified by vegetation, but by soil type, as you are well aware. Scrub shrubs and specific plantings at present do not necessarily identify actual wetland areas unless the soils are identified and verified wetland soil types. This comes from the state definition of what a wetland and watercourse is considered here in the state of Connecticut. Furthermore, the applicant has submitted an 8th final revised plan showing a natural swale between 94 and 92 Post Office Road. He also wishes to propose a conservation easement to the north side of the boundaries between 90 and 92 Post Office Road. Staff believes strongly that the applicant has met and/or exceeded all applicable regulations and requirements for a single-family home for a residential homeowner. This has little disturbances in the wetlands, as this has been demonstrated clearly by the applicant's PE and the soil scientist, Eric Davison. And as a recap, the Wetlands Agency does not have the authority to regulate any of the flood zone areas, as these are under the jurisdiction of the Planning and Zoning Commission, who act as the Flood and Erosion Control Board, where only the 100-year FEMA flood zone is regulated. The 500-year FEMA flood zone is not regulated by the Flood and Erosion Control Board. The PZC was identified as this board under the town charter. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, just a question. This is probably to staff. Can you just go over the timeline where we're at with this application and the public hearing?
Yes. So the applicant gave us one extension, which occurred on May 16th. That was to get some more information for their property and to help answer some of the questions from the public and the commissioners. So today is the last day to close the public hearing. After you close the public hearing, you have 35 days to make a decision. However, the only other instance where the public hearing can be continued is if that request comes from the applicant, in which you have to accept the request. And as far as I know, I don't have an extension request right now, so today would be the public hearing decision to close.
All right.
First of all, let me introduce myself because
Yep.
I've not heard before.
Sure.
I'm Attorney Richard Case. Offices are in Avon, Connecticut. Firm is Case & Case PC. As you can see from my gray hair, I practiced law for several years.
Excuse me, Mr. Case, just speak into the microphone, okay, so everybody can hear you.
As you can see, I have practiced for many years. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So we can continue the public hearing. We have one person that would like to speak, or we can just close the public hearing if you like. Any? Yeah, do you have anything? Well, maybe you might want to just mention, since it's new, about the easement that you're proposing.
So a couple things have changed on the plan since our meeting. I stamped this plan in on May 19th after speaking to the abutter, Michelle Menard. And, we had a plan that I think was presented to you as well by their engineer, Mr. Jeff Board. And we then took the plan that Mr. Board had provided to the Ms. Menard, and we incorporated everything as they showed. And we also included, as you knew from the prior meeting, the proposed dry well. The sump pump will be feeding into the proposed dry well, and the gutters will be going into that dry well as well. And then I also proposed along the 117 contour line that would become a conservation easement. Okay. And you can treat that if there's placards or whatever that we can fix to, permanent posting. I've done that in the past in multiple towns.
Put that on as a site-specific condition?
Yep,
Yes.
I think that was included in yep.
Should that go on the deed as well? Or?
That would be something that will become drafted by his attorney and whoever becomes involved in the purchasing of the home. Yep, and then it would become pretty much up to the town for maintenance, and it just keeps things natural where they are, so no disturbance would occur in that area. It would never be able to be developed. Removing a conservation easement is practically impossible. It's a very, very challenging task to get done.
And just to elaborate, what would happen is the easement itself would be recorded in the land records here in town, and then the deed of transfer would refer to that easement so that anyone, including the proposed buyer of this home, would know that in fact it exists and would be subject to.
Excellent.
We also have conservation easement badges, so we can give the applicant to help identify the location of that easement.
Perfect.
Good.
That's great. Yeah, and I do see that the swale is more delineated, so that's excellent. Thank you. That certainly makes it a lot easier to see, and it's definitely more clear there. All right. So I guess we'll all right. Let me just read the rule here. All right, so I will let the one person come up just as a refresher. Please do not bring up any items related to other agencies, commissions, such as P&Z, as we can only base our decisions on IWWA rules and regulations. You're on the sign-up sheet. We'll give you up to 5 minutes, and if the applicant would like to respond to anything, they can do that, and then we'll move forward. So I have Michelle Menard.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, my goodness.
Hello.
Hi.
Make sure you can hear me.
Just name and address for the record, please.
My name is Michelle Menard. I live at 94 Post Office Road, next door to the applicant property. As the applicant had indicated since the last meeting, I had the chance to meet with him, discuss concerns about the stormwater onto my property. The applicant has since taken those recommendations made about the swale and the slope away from the property line from Jeff Board and included them in the plan submitted to you. These changes, in addition to the dry well that was previously added to the plan, should address the concerns about the stormwater discharge onto my property. While on the plan, I also think that some sort of deed restriction to ensure these strategies remain on the property and maintained would be something to consider and may be appropriate. The applicant has indicated that if for some reason the mitigation strategies don't work as planned, he's willing to work with my husband and I to correct things. So I had previously also spoken about whether any potential stormwater from the property should be allowed to drain into the wetlands. But with these changes, it appears that the potential additional runoff from the proposed house may now be minimal, given that the roof leaders will direct into the dry well, and so only there's some possible stormwater runoff from the proposed driveway that may be additional impact, but that also appears to be minimal due to the plans. I know there was concern about where the wetlands exist on the town-owned lot and the potential impact of an incorrect wetlands buffer on that side. It appears that those mitigation strategies that are being implemented to address my concerns would also work to reduce any runoff towards that side of the property, resulting in less impact to the wetlands, even if they were closer than, is currently mapped on the plans. The applicant has expressed a willingness to include restrictions relating to conserving that natural landscape on that property as well to help mitigate the wetlands impact, as they just stated. While I feel as though the board and the applicant have been very willing to consider all information presented, I do want to express some concerns about the town staff throughout this hearing process. As the Wetlands Board, you have been tasked with making decisions in the best interest of the town regarding our wetlands. And during this proceeding, at least from what I've seen, it appears that the town staff has been undermining your ability to decide in a fair and impartial manner due to their own involvement with the property. Citizens like me have the right to expect that governmental decisions will be based on the best interests of the public, and that should include information being presented to boards by the staff. But it appears that the town staff has been providing inaccurate and biased information to get this application approved for the town's own interest to ensure the lot is buildable as the seller of this lot. I am only speaking out tonight, not because of anything in this application. As I've already indicated, my concerns have reasonably been satisfied. And a deed restriction might alleviate some of them, but even that I'm not overly concerned about. But I expected fairness and impartiality from government employees, such as the town staff, and that doesn't appear to be the case. Examples of this include the new notes, as discussed about the staff report, indicating that a legal opinion was requested to verify that no statutory authority exists to give the Inland Wetlands Agency the power to require any off-site work to a property owned by third parties. And an email was received stating this was true and therefore you can't do that. This summary is really false and misleading based on the actual information in the packet and of the case law that I looked up. The first issue is the email is labeled legal opinion. In the packet, that email literally says it can't be a legal opinion because neither you as the agency or the applicant has requested the opinion. The second issue is that the town attorney indicates that there does not appear to be a statutory authority that requires an applicant to enter onto third-party property, but it provided case law, but not case law to support that point directly. I have found 2 Connecticut cases, Town of Preston versus Braben, and Red Hill Coalition versus Conservation Commission of Town of Glastonbury, where the applicants were required to complete activities on third-party properties by wetlands agencies. The Town of Preston case actually required that applicant to complete activities when the other property owner did not consent. The quoted court case by the town attorney only indicates that municipalities have the rights and powers granted expressly to it by the state, but the Inland Wetlands Agency has been granted the rights and powers to regulate activities occurring around wetlands and watercourses. It is also clear that as the town's regulations indicate that consideration must be made within a 100-foot buffer, it would be appropriate to consider off-site wetlands in the application process. Similar issues about the authority of the Wetlands Agency and validity of town regulations are discussed in the Ciofetti case. And I'm concerned that this research you guys were provided was not very comprehensive and it doesn't appear to be accurate. So I'm submitting all those cases I referenced for your review, just so you can decide for yourselves. Lastly, I'm concerned that the town manager has denied entry onto the property to do the delineation as you guys requested. The denial appears to be based inaccurately on quoted case law in an email that isn't even a legal opinion. The request for delineation does appear to be allowable within the town and state regulations, and the town's own agency had requested this service to be done. It seems this denial for access is unnecessarily requiring you as the Wetlands Agency to decide on an application without knowing if the impacted activities are within the 100-foot review area. And that's to no fault of the applicant and no fault of your own. Again, I only raise these points because I found the actions of the various town staff to be inappropriate and biased towards a particular outcome and are not in keeping with the impartiality and best interests of the public that we expect of government employees. These actions and the precedents they set can unduly and negatively affect the agency's future ability to complete your duty in protecting and preserving wetlands for the public in the future. Again, I want to reiterate, my concerns about this application has largely been addressed, but I'm really concerned about what appears a lack of fairness and impartiality by the town staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I will. Yeah.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
May I read this email into the record for clarification?
Absolutely.
The email is actually stated not as legal opinion, but as legal opinion requested for wetlands, because it is my job to serve you. As planning staff, we are unbiased. We do not have an opinion if an application is approved or denied. We only care about whether or not if the application satisfies the regulations for the town of Enfield and that everything is legal per the Connecticut state statutes. So just to clarify, this request came from me to help verify the Wetlands Commission was acting in their true authority. So from the town attorney, it states, Lori, the Inland Wetlands and Watercourse Agency did not request a legal review of its requests for additional information with regard to the application for 92 Post Office Road. As such, it would not be appropriate for the town attorney's office to sua sponte review and comment thereon. It would be up to the applicant or its counsel to voice any objections to the requested information. However, and notwithstanding the previous comments, there does not appear to be any any statutory authority for the Inland Wetlands and Watercourse Agency, or any land use agency for that matter, to require an applicant to enter onto property owned by a third party in order to conduct off-site activities, including testing of soils, surveying, and delineated wetlands on adjacent properties. In Connecticut, it is well settled that as a creation of the state, a municipality has no inherent powers of its own, and that a municipality possesses only such rights and powers that have been granted expressly to it by the state. Blue Sky Bar versus Town of Stratford, case law example. See also Buttermilk Farms LLC versus PZC, another case law example of this. And just to clarify, the request that I asked to make sure the Wetlands Agency was being protected, and their request says, "Hello, Lori. I would like to request a legal opinion, if I may, after the Wetlands meeting on May 2nd. And if possible, I would appreciate this could be expedited as the Inland Wetlands Agency has a deadline to close the public hearing on May 16th. That was before the applicant requested an extension. With that being said, if this is the case, then the applicant's soil scientist needs to get out in the field prior to May 16th. Question: Can the Inland Wetlands Agency require an applicant to delineate wetland soils beyond the subject property boundaries on adjacent property? Background: the Wetlands Chair stated on the record that if the applicant does not delineate the wetlands on the lot located to the west, Lot 1, owned by the town of Enfield, of the applicant's property, 92 Post Office Road being their property, she will vote no on their application. Section 19.6 and the Wetlands Regulations say, as a condition of a permit, the agency may require that the applicant engage and pay for an independent consultant to report to the agency the results of project monitoring and/or inspection. The consultant must be pre-approved by the agency, and the consultant shall monitor and/or inspect on a schedule determined by the agency," unquote. The wetlands application checklist has a spot on the form that says wetlands located on adjacent properties within approximately 100 feet of subject property. I'm pretty sure this item needs to be removed from the application checklist. Here's a YouTube video from the meeting I am referencing. Thank you for your time, Georgie Driver. So basically, I'm acting what my job requires me to do to verify case law, to verify statutes, that any request that you ask an applicant is legal and allowed. Staff has no reason to misguide you in any of that matter. Staff's opinions are irrelevant. All we do is serve the public, we serve the commission, and we serve the applicants. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll open it up. Is there anybody else in the public that would like to speak to this application for the public hearing? Any other speakers for the public hearing? One last time. All right. Applicant, if you'd like to, anything else you'd like to say?
No, good.
All right. Anybody have?
I don't
Sure.
think we have anything to add. I mean, I've had an opportunity to look at all of the YouTube, and so there's been lots of testimony and a site walk, so we have nothing further to add.
Thank you. All right. Anybody care to make a motion? First, we have to close the public hearing. Would be
So
the first.
moved.
Duly second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call?
Kevin Zorda.
Yes.
Virginia Higley, yes. Robert Hendrickson.
Yes.
Nancy Martin.
Yes.
Phil Kober.
Yes.
5 in favor, motion passes. All right, so we have, I'm sorry, how many days? Third?
You can make a decision tonight,
Or-
or you have 35 days to decide.
All right. Would anybody like to entertain a motion? What's everybody's feeling? Just gonna make sure.
I feel that we've listed all the information. It appears that the neighbors' concerns have been addressed by the applicant. So I feel that there's not a need to continue it, but I'd like to hear the other members say.
Yeah, I definitely feel like you've gone above and beyond what most would do for this type of application, and made basically all the requests that we have made, you've done for us, so I appreciate that. Anybody else?
Yeah, so I would just comment, and obviously because we just closed the public hearing, we're not going to be able to accept new information, so I would urge that we make a motion tonight.
I concur, and I just want to thank both the applicant and the public for exercising your right to explain both sides and to come before us and present your findings and your thinking, and that's very much appreciated. Thank you.
Good. Jean? All right. Anybody like to make a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve IW 67792 Post Office Road, application for a wetlands permit for development of a single-family home, Winbrook Homes LLC, owner applicant, map lot R44 zone, with the following site-specific condition. Final plans will show the conservation easement location.
I second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Discussion over
So
the-
just the discussion topic that came up that was identified. So the public kind of inclined my thoughts that there is a misinterpretation of some of the statutory law. 22A42 requires municipal regulation of wetlands, and that's what empowers our local ordinances and regulations. And then looking at section 75K2 of what we require for application requirements, that paragraph does say adjacent lands and adjacent regulated areas. So that would imply that you don't know what a regulated area is if you don't know.
Yeah, so
That said, we can't decide on possibilities or concerns. So based on the information we have, I will be voting in favor, but I do want to highlight that I also had that concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kober, for bringing that to our attention. When we review our regulations, we can address that concern. 19, there's another section in the regs that talks about when there's conflicts, the Act governs, and this would be another conflict we have in the regulations.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
No.
Oh, good. All right. Roll call, please.
Kevin Zorda,
Yes.
Virginia Higley, yes. Robert Hendrickson,
Yes.
Nancy Martin,
Yes.
Phil Kober.
Yes.
5 in favor, no opposed. The motion carries. Good luck to you, gentlemen. Thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to the next item, number 9, new public hearings. None being had. Old business, determination of permit needed. This is DPN 2023-03-24D 147 Abbey Road. That is tabled. Are we?
Yes, Derek Donnelly for the
Sure.
applicant. Good to see you all again. So this was put on as, this was on the agenda. It was tabled. My understanding, it was tabled. Staff had asked us to get reports in by the 31st. We just have the reports. I didn't realize it was designated as tabled tonight, but we do have everybody here. So if you'd like to hear from us, I know you just did get the report, but you have the opportunity to talk to Mr. Zulik and have him give you his findings. If that's something that you're interested in, we can do that in an abbreviated presentation.
Yeah, Mr.
Staff had a chance to review any new material,
No, we received them tonight.
Okay.
so I think we should table it.
Well, I think it'd be okay to listen. Since you got everybody here, we could listen to it and then. just-
Yeah,
Yeah,
Right,
I would
for
be on board
decision.
with
Yep.
taking it off the table, hearing new information, and then retabling
You can
it
do that.
as
The
needed.
DPNs have no statutory time clocks from what I could see in the regs or the statutes.
Just since you have everybody here for sure, so I just need a motion
So,
to.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to remove item 10A, DPN 2023-03-24D, 147 Abbey Road, request for jurisdictional ruling for the expansion of existing pond, Jarmark Tobacco LLC applicant, Jarmark Real Estate LLC owner, map 85, lot 16, R44, off the table for further discussion.
Have a motion.
Second.
And a second. Any discussion? Roll call?
Kevin Zorda,
Yes.
Virginia Higley, yes. Robert Hendrickson,
Yes.
Nancy Martin,
Yes.
Phil Kober.
Yes.
5 in favor, none opposed. Motion carries.
Great. Thank you very much for the courtesy. I really, really do appreciate it. Again, for the record, Derek Donnelly, Blackburn and Donnelly, for the applicant. This DPN, as you know, is relative to an enforcement action. And as part of that, in discussions with the commission and with staff, my client did hire a soil scientist to go out, take a look at the property, take a look at where the soils that were excavated out of the farm pond were deposited. So I do have Mr. Zulik here tonight, and he can give you a little rundown of his report, answer some questions. And if the commission then at that point needs more time for the staff to consider it, we certainly understand. But again, I do appreciate the courtesy this evening.
Absolutely.
Hi, for the record, my name is Richard Zulik. I'm a soil scientist with Datum Engineering and Surveying. I can give you a brief rundown, or I can read the report to you. It's not long.
Mr. Zulik, sorry to interrupt. Just a question for clarification. So this is listed as 147. Looks like this report's referring to 151 Abbey Road. Are we talking about the same property?
We are. The actual designation I think we've had in the record before. It's 147-151 Abbey Road.
Yeah.
Understood. Thank you.
This
Yeah,
is
it does
correct.
bring up some
Yeah, I think that's on the record.
Yep, it's the GIS and the way the assessor and the engineer sign property addresses.
Thank you.
Since you have not had an opportunity to read the report, I can read it into the record if you'd like. It's not a long report. It'll probably take me 4 or 5 minutes.
Sure.
Dated June 1st, 2023. Dear Commissioners, I've reviewed the area of the pond excavation and deposit of spoils at Jarmuck Farms located at 151 Abbey Road in Enfield, Connecticut. The area of concern is located east of Abbey Road and southeast of the excavated irrigation pond. I've carefully checked below the area of spoil deposit for wetland soil indicators. All excavated fill was placed on an agricultural field that was used until last year for the production of pumpkins. The investigation by me was conducted on May 9th, 2023, with the assistance of an operator and tracked excavator. 10 soil pits were excavated through the fill and well into the original soils below. The results and location of the test pits are shown within this report and the sketch included. NRCS mapping of the filled area includes the presence of Ninigret, moderately well-drained, and Elmridge, moderately well-drained soils. My investigation concurs with the NRCS mapping. Ninigret soils the series consists of a moderately well-drained soil formed in loamy over sandy and gravelly glacial outwash. They're nearly level to strongly sloping on glacial fluvial landforms, typically in slight depressions and broad drainage ways. The Elmridge series consists of very deep, moderately well-drained soils formed in loamy over clayey sediments and are nearly level to moderately steep soils on glacial lacustrine and marine terraces and on lake plains. I have the results of the 10 test pits. The first 9, I don't know that should be read into the record there. Yeah, if you could see them. Soil investigation pits 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 demonstrated no wetland soils below and immediately surrounding the fill deposited east and southeast of the excavated irrigation pond. Test pit 3 was located well outside the area of fill, near the northeast corner of the budding field, and did reveal wetland soil indicators. This wetland pocket is being cultivated as part of the tilled field for farm production, both now and historically. See the sketch for location. This pit demonstrated both a low chroma matrix and excessive redox concentrations. The wetland soil is a Scidico soil series. Just for clarification, that is well outside the area of spoil deposits. My conclusion was that the pond spoils were placed on upland soils. No spoils from the pond excavation have been placed on wetland soils. If you have any questions concerning this assessment or this report, please feel free to contact me. And it's signed, Richard Zulik. So we did go out there and conducted pits, through the fill, and they were upland soils below.
Excellent.
Yeah. I also included the NRCS mapping, which was fairly accurate. And I trust that you have the sketch.
Yep.
So the little yellow areas are the fill areas, and the numbers are the pits that were conducted.
Again, part of the, go back and forth there. Part of the concern in the original enforcement action was both the excavation, but also the depositing of the soils. So really with this, that's what we wanted to address. We believe the excavation, as we previously stated, is fairly clear under the statute as permissible.
Yep.
But the depositing of the soils was a real concern for staff, and rightly so. So we've, and we do think, these results are important to share and important to get on the record. So again, appreciate the patience and consideration here.
Excellent. Thank you. Anything from my left? Anything? Discussion?
Just a quick question for Mr. Zulik. Just looking at the little scatter plot where you dug the test pits, was there any methodology? Because like number 4 seemed like smack in the middle, 3 kind of seemed off to the side near the field. Was there a specific pattern you were going for? Or?
No.
Okay.
No, I wanted to get, outside the edge of the fill area. I wanted to get the deepest of the fill areas. I think number 7 or 8 was the tallest. I think there was like 6 feet of fill in there. But, yeah, we just kind of worked around with the excavator best we could. There were some areas that were, it had rained. There were some areas that were pretty mushy, so trying to keep the excavator from getting stuck too.
Okay. That's fair. Thank you.
Nancy, anything? Any question? All right. So I think it would be appropriate just to give staff time to go over the new documentation, just a table for that purpose.
I move to table determination of permit need 2023-03-24D.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to table. Any discussion? Roll call?
Kevin Zorda,
Yes.
Virginia Higley, yes. Robert Hendrickson,
Yes.
Nancy Martin,
Yes.
Phil Kober.
Yes.
5 in favor, none opposed. We will table it to our next meeting.
Great. And again, thank you for the courtesy. I know you have a long meeting tonight, so we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next is new business. First is IW 687 Betty Road, application for an in-ground pool. Nadia Wright applicant, James Terry and Leanna O'Neill, owners, map 62, lot 37, R33 zone. Come on up.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Welcome back.
Frequent flyer. Is this on?
Yeah, it should be on. It's a red light.
Yeah,
up.
it's on. Nadia Wright, 321 Talcatville Road in Vernon. Okay. We are proposing an in-ground pool, 21 by 32 with 470 square feet of patio. The total pool area would be 1,142 square feet with the 4-foot safety fence. Roughly 124 cubic yards to be excavated. If the material is good, we'll stockpile it on site for final grading and backfilling. If it's no good, we'll haul it away. Silt fence and straw wattles will be installed prior to work, and that's basically the gist. I'm open to any questions if there are any.
So what do you mean if the soil's good or not good?
Well, if it's rocky soil or, things like that, it's not ideal to use it for backfilling and final grading. You'd want to use something,
topsoil
Yeah,
versus
exactly.
processed or something.
Correct.
Will you be maintaining the pool?
The homeowner, we do offer yearly service plan. That would be up to the homeowner if they would like to sign up for that.
Okay, I was just curious where the chemicals would be stored, but if you're not certain.
If they do decide to sign up for the, yearly service plan, that would include all the balancing chemicals, so we would bring them weekly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Anything else over here?
Mr. Chair, I can add some more information to help you.
Absolutely, go ahead.
So as Ms. Wright had mentioned, it's for an in-ground pool. The approximate location of the in-ground pool will be almost the exact location where the above-ground pool was. There is soil stockpiling on site, as you can see from the site plan she submitted. The only site-specific recommendation condition that staff came up with was just to adjust that silt fencing a little bit because of the way the topography runs on site, to include silt fencing around the east and south side of the temporary soil stockpile and the in-ground pool/patio construction area. It just needs to be adjusted slightly due to the site topography. It should be located less west and more towards the east and the south sides. And definitely around the soil stockpiling area. And of course, they'll have access to haul materials in, haul materials out if needed.
Thank you. All right. Anybody like to make a motion? Any questions? Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve IW 680 7 Betty Road, application for an in-ground pool. Nadia Wright applicant, James Terry and Leanna O'Neill, owners, map 62, lot 37, R33 zone, with the following site specific. Number one, silt fencing will be included around the east and south side of the property of the temporary soil stockpile and in-ground pool patio construction area.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Nope.
Roll call, please.
Kevin Zorda.
Yes.
Virginia Higley, yes. Robert Hendrickson.
Yes.
Nancy Martin.
Yes.
Phil Kober.
Yes.
5 in favor, none opposed. Motion carries. And I think you're staying right there.
Yes, I am.
IW number 681, 10 Patricia Circle, application for an in-ground pool, Nadia Wright applicant, James and Jenna Herrick, owners, map 70, lot 66, R88 zone.
Nadia Wright, 321 Talcott Rail Road in Vernon. So we are proposing a 20 by 42 by 31 in-ground pool with a 4-foot safety fence, self-closing, self-latching gate, and 800 square foot of patio. The total pool area would be 1,676 square feet. I don't believe there was any wetlands of concern on this property. It was just the escarpment, which the pool is outside of that escarpment area. It's mostly just patio that will be within that area. The building process will be the same as I mentioned before. Excavated material will be hauled off site if it's not something that we can use to backfill and final grade. Straw wattles and silt fencing will be the erosion control. And it will remain in place until the lawn is established.
Go ahead.
If you should have to drain the pool at any time, that would be drained away from the escarpment, correct?
Yes, if we need to drain the pool, we do have water trucks that we can pump out the water and repurpose it. You're welcome.
So hopefully a quick question. Obviously, the pool is going to be a cut, and you're talking about the backfill. If you can't backfill from that, what's the plan for soils coming in, or what are you going to use for that?
So I work for Giuliano's Pools. I'm also the owner of 10 Patricia. We truck sand in just from pits, septic quality type sand, free draining.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was going to ask if staff had any.
Yep, so as you're well aware, they came in for a DPN. DPN required a permit for the escarpments. And I want to clarify, the DPN also included a shed. The applicant has decided not to go forward with the shed at this moment in time. Another thing is there are no recommended site-specific conditions. In fact, we recommend eliminating the conditions that don't really apply for small residential properties, such as bonds or planting, landscaping information. And we don't really get final plans for residential properties. Sometimes we just hand in the same diagram and we slap a sticker on it. But the fact that they have adequate erosion and sediment control measures is good to protect the escarpments towards the back.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve IW 681, 10 Patricia Circle, application for an in-ground pool. Nadia Wright applicant, James and Jenna Herrick, owners, map 70, lot 66, R88 zone, with no site specifics and standard conditions as identified in the staff report.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I have a question, Mr. Chair. Just Commissioner Kober, you said make a motion to approve with no site specifics and no general condition?
And the generals as identified in the
Okay,
staff
just
report.
making sure. Thank you.
All right. Roll call?
Kevin Zorda.
Yes.
Virginia Higley, yes. Robert Hendrickson.
Yes.
Nancy Martin.
Yes.
Phil Kober.
Yes.
5 in favor, none opposed. The motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.
You too. All right, next is IW number 682, 25 First Ave, application for the development of a single-family home, James Ussery, applicant representative, Joseph and Anne Marie Klemick, owners, map 36, lot 321, R33 zone.
I would be happy to. Thank you.
Please just state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. For the record, J. Ursary, J.R. Rousseau and Associates, 1 Shulham Road, East Windsor, here representing the applicants Joe Klemick and Anne Marie Klemick. Anne Marie is also here in the audience this evening. Joe lives out of state and is not attending this evening, but I think he's online listening. So this is an application for a permit to conduct regulated activities at 25 First Avenue. This is a single-family residential lot that was approved back in 1920 as part of a subdivision. It had never been built upon, and I would say the reason is because there were no sewers, obviously, back in that time frame. Sewers came in here, I think, in the 50s or 60s. The Klimicks have owned this lot since the 40s. They inherited it from their parents, who I think inherited it from their parents, and it's been in the family for a long, long time. It's assessed as an approved building lot. They also paid a sewer user charge when the sewer went in. They do have a lateral that's there for the construction of a home. So for whatever reason, nothing ever happened with it. The family's owned it for a long time. They never built on it. They put it on the market a number of years ago. No interest, no buyers. They did come across some interest probably 2 years ago, and we did a plan for a local developer who was interested in doing something. And when we told him he needed a wetland permit and it was going to cost X amount of dollars to go through that process, he decided that, well, there's some risk here and I don't think I want to do that. So the Klimicks kind of put the thing on the shelf at that point in time and we didn't do anything. So to give you some of the history, John Ianni was hired in 2014, I believe it was, to do this delineation. He did a field delineation of the wetland. It's shown on the plan you have in front of you and on the big plan up there. And the blue line that you see is the actual field delineation of the wetlands. The pink line is the line from your GIS, which is also pretty much consistent with what the NRCS soil survey shows. Your GIS is probably actually just a regurgitation of the NRCS, which actually is, in most cases, a regurgitation of the Harford County Soil Survey done by the United States Department of Agriculture in the 50s. I took a look at that, and it very closely matches this particular configuration of what you see there in the soils as well. There is a copy of the NRCS map in the application, and I also brought tonight, because I don't think I gave it to you, so I can hand this out, is a copy of the soil descriptions that are in the NRCS delineation. So I put this together today so that you can all see it. And just for clarification, the wetland soil is the top of the sheet. There's one wetland soil, the rest are upland soils. And it gives you a pretty good description of the soils that are out there on site. So about a year ago, the Klimicks came back to us and said, well, we think we want to move forward. We want to spend the money. We want to put an application together, come before the commission to see if we can get a permit, and then maybe we can sell this lot and finally put it to bed. So that's the reason that we're here. What we're showing here is a slab-on-grade raised ranch home located on the southerly side of the lot. There's sewer, there's water available. We're showing those connections. It's a two-car garage. We've got a driveway going in. And there is no disturbance within the wetland area itself. There's disturbance and clearing pretty close to the wetland, but no actual disturbance within the wetland area itself. And you can see the clearing limit lines that are shown on the plan, the scalloped lines. Right now, the entire lot is wooded in today's condition. So there would be some clearing required to put the house, the driveway, and bring the utilities in. Currently, the lot slopes essentially from the southeasterly corner or the right rear corner of the property towards the northwesterly corner or the left front corner of the property as we look at it. There's a culvert that goes underneath First Avenue at that location. Any runoff or any water that would come from this wetland or this lot or the lots further to the east gets into this culvert, goes under the road, and somehow finds its way through the lots on the opposite side of the road, goes under Route 91 somewhere through a pipe, and continues westerly and eventually finds its way into the Connecticut River. And it's probably a tributary, I think, of Grape Brook. I took a look at some historical mapping on the Yukon Magic site. There's 34 aerials there, and the wetland there is very easy to see that comes through this property. That's prior to 91. 91 didn't exist. And there was actually a house on the lot just to the south of this in 1934. there weren't too many houses here back then, but there were a few, and the one just to the south of this one was there. So, as I said, the house doesn't require any wetland disturbance, although we are close to the wetland opposite the left rear corner of the house. And in fact, Georgie made a comment, which I agree with her on, that the silt fence needs to be slid back just a little bit in that location to cover a proposed contour. She also requested we add the delineation date that John Ianni did, which was 2014, and I've added that actually to the plan that you have on in front of you this evening. I did read through all of Georgie's comments. I don't have any concerns. We can add the dates. We'll move the silt fence. But one thing I heard here this evening, which came to mind that might make some sense here should you feel that you could approve this, is I heard somebody mention placards. And I recall probably 30 years ago, to be honest, we did a project in South Windsor that was similar to this, where we had a house that was, the house itself, I think, was about 15 feet off the edge of the wetland. And the commission required us to put a split rail fence right along the wetland line and to put the placards on the fence so that the residents, whoever it may be that live there, are aware, and if the house turns over, they know that this is a regulated area, this is a wetland, that you can't go in there clearing trees and trimming trees and filling and do what you want to do. And I think it makes a lot of sense probably for that to happen here because, you know, there is a lawn area and the house is probably 25 feet or somewhere thereabouts off the edge of the wetland, maybe 30 feet. So I think it would be a good idea in this case to have something like that as a condition should you feel that you could approve this application. As I said, it's fairly straightforward. There is one glitch, and Georgie pointed it out in her memo, is that we don't have a soils report. John Ianni retired. I did contact him, and I'm not going to quote the entire email, but he did say, "Nice try, Jay, but no, I'm not doing it. I'm retired. My computer's dead, and I'm not giving you anything. Thank you. Goodbye." So, and that was about a year ago. He did respond, though, so I guess I have to give him that credit. But he wasn't interested in doing any work or come to any meetings or writing any reports. So what I did do, though, and I understand that that's normally what you see, is I wanted to give you the NRCS information, so you have that. And I did send Georgie an email, actually sent her a copy of John Ianni's bill, just to show that, yes, it was done. He did flag it. We did locate the flags. And I know, you know, that's really not an issue. I mean, I'd like to think that J.R. Russo's got a pretty good reputation. We've been around for long enough that we weren't going to make up wetland flags. But I said, I was able to dig out the invoice. I had the girls out in the garage going through old files. I said, it's got to be here somewhere. And they found it. So I sent it off to you anyways. So I'm not going to belabor this. I think it's pretty simple. Like I said, there is no disturbance, although, you know, I think in the application I indicated that we didn't do any or look at any alternatives, and we actually did. I did another plan when this other builder was looking at it, and I'll give it to you. You can take a look at it. And I had the house the other way. I had the garage to the right, and I had the living space to the left. And the reason is that there's a utility pole there. And if you look at the way I've got the driveway now, it flares into a single lane down by the road because the utility pole's in the way. And my first shot at it was the other way. And when I did it that way, there was a little fill that encroached into the wetland. And I said, well, maybe that's not the best way to go. We'll modify the driveway a little bit and make it a single lane going in. So you can take a look at this. I was able to dig this up and make a copy so you can see this. So there actually is one alternative that we looked at, and I decided when we did this one to flop it over the other way, move the fill around the side of the house to the other side and keep it out of the wetlands. So that said, I think that kind of sums up the application. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them if I can.
So I think you answered this, but there was no way to actually get a copy of that delineation report?
There is no report. He never generated the report because at the time, when we started into this, they decided that they didn't want to spend the money to put the whole application together and come before you in 2014, because quite honestly, and I know you know this, I mean, it's thousands and thousands of dollars to put these plans and applications together, and they said, no, we're going to keep it on the market and see if we can sell it. Well, here it is, 2023, still haven't sold it, had one builder that was somewhat interested, and then that didn't happen because he didn't want to spend the money. So they finally said, well, if we're ever going to get rid of this lot, it looks like we have to spend some money. So they said, yes, and as I indicated, called John Ianni. No, sorry, retired, I'm playing golf, and I'm not writing any more reports. And that's where we are today.
Well, that's fine. So, and the second question I had, I know for smaller residentials, we usually don't require like a full stormwater report, but it was identified, and I think you had mentioned it as well, that this proposed plan is basically changing the runoff from southeast to northwest to northeast to east. Can you just kind of explain it, and do you think that's going to have any effect on the surrounding
No, actually,
wetlands?
the existing condition runs from the right rear to the left front, and it's going to continue to do that. We've got it so that we've got it going around the house. Obviously, we don't want surface runoff going into the house. So we've got it swaled to the left rear of the house to come around, and we've got it graded to come around the right side and to the front. And if you note, it may be hard to see on the 11 by 17, we've actually put a small culvert under the driveway to allow that water to pass under the driveway and go to the north to get to the culvert and go under the road. So we're not changing any patterns in terms of the water. All the water goes to the wetland now. It's going to continue to go there. And in fact, with the little bit of roof for this small house and a little bit of driveway, the wetland will actually get a small amount more water than what it currently gets. But it's probably not even able to calculate it. It's so small because it's just a very small impervious area that we're adding. But the runoff patterns are not changing. All the water is still going to go to the wetland.
Anything else left?
No?
Nope. Any motion? Oh, I'm sorry. Staff?
So I was just double checking our regs to see if there's anything about waiving requirements. And as I'm going through them, there is no requirement for an actual delineation report from what I found so far. Granted, I didn't finish. However, it just says to have the flat wetlands located on the plan. John Ianni has done multiple sites in Enfield. All his reports are pretty straightforward. The only thing I am thinking of that would come into play in the future, if we do our annual map amendment process, we might not be able to consider this property, but granted it is residential, I'm not 100% sure if that would have a great impact on anything. If anything going forward, if they're doing the conservation area there, that actually protects the wetlands that were flagged, and that is correct. Our GIS layer is ancient, almost. That's a nice way of saying it. But they have the invoice that it was paid, it was flagged, and I don't see an issue with it. If it was a bigger project, maybe there'd be some questioning about it, but that was the only thing. And then, of course, my recommended site-specific conditions would be to include additional silt fencing along the proposed 116 contour towards the south side of the property. And then if you, as the agency, decided to also add that conservation part of it as well, that pretty much be it. All the other department comments have been satisfied. And then to eliminate the general condition of submitting a plan noting plant type and number of plants to be placed in the affected area. Thank you.
Do you feel like you need a little more time just to make sure everything's,
No.
no? Okay.
I like that the applicant is proposing conservation medallions. I think that's a great thing to do, so thank you.
I think it makes sense in many cases, and Some towns don't even have them, believe it or not. Most do today, but there are some that don't. We typically see them in Summers, South Windsor, East Windsor. You have them here, but there are some that don't. But I think it makes a lot of sense because somebody could move in there someday down the road and they don't know. They just have no idea.
Mr. Chair, if I may, something just came to my mind from what he just said. It does kind of also meet one of your new POCD goals to preserve and protect natural wetlands going forward, and I'm sure the Conservation Commission would like that as well.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, second, indicate conservation areas with placards.
It would just have to be
Signage.
reflected in the deed.
Yeah. Signage and reflected in deed. And I assume you'd be amenable to that since you proposed it?
Yes, that's not a problem.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Chair, I move to approve IW 682, 25 First Ave, application for the development of a single-family home, Joseph and Anne Marie Klimek, owners, map 36, lot 321, R33 zone. The following site specifics. Number one, silt fencing will also be included towards the south side of the proposed grading at contour 116. Site condition number two, indicate conservation areas with placards and/or signage, and for it to be reflected in the deed.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion to the left? Discussion to the right? Roll call?
Kevin Zorda.
Yes.
Virginia Higley, yes. Robert Hendrickson.
Yes.
Nancy Martin.
Yes.
Phil Kober.
Yes.
5 in favor, none opposed. The motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Good luck, thank you. And next is IW number 683, 7 Lois Lane, application for a pool deck and shed. David and Jacqueline Rustic, applicant owner, map 53, lot 368, R33 zone.
Hello, good evening. David Rustic, property owner of 7 Lois Lane, representing myself and wife Jacqueline Rustic, probably on TV, seeking permission to build a pool deck and a shed. Our entire neighborhood of the Lois Lane property outside of the I think 1 and 2 are in wetlands, although my grass will not believe in it yet. But yeah, just seeking permission to add the pool deck for my family to enjoy, roughly 320 square feet, and the 16 by 12 shed for storage of pool materials and chemicals and whatnot.
So one of the questions, I think, just to clarify, the placement of the shed, are you guys going to put it, is it going to be in a slab? Are you guys excavating soils or anything?
No excavation, 8 inches of crushed gravel, cement blocks.
Thank you.
Anything else? Anybody other questions? No. Anything on the right? Staff?
So I had a comment from my initial review about how the shed will be placed on the property, if it's going on top of slab or if it will be disturbing any soils, to which Mr. Rustic had answered that question. That comment has been satisfied. No soils will be disturbed from the placement of the shed. And unfortunately, he lives in a subdivision that was built before the Clean Water Act came into play, as 70% of our subdivisions are. And the neighboring properties also have in-ground pools, accessory structures. Our office has never received a complaint of water pooling or runoff from any neighboring property.
Thank you. All right.
Oh, wait, sorry, one more thing. The only recommended site-specific I had was to include silt fencing around the construction area for the pool deck installation and the shed to prevent any sediment runoff.
Excellent. Motion, anybody? Discussion, anything else?
Phil's going to do it.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve IW 683, 7 Lois Lane, application for a pool deck, David and Jacqueline Rustick, applicant owner, map 53, lot 368, R33 zone.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any left?
Only thing I'll mention is, and the staff report identified, the wetland layer does show the entire area as wetlands, and as we talked about, that map seems out of date, and any wetlands have probably been heavily disturbed, so,
Yeah.
in favor.
All right,
Yep.
roll call?
Kevin Zorda.
Yes.
Virginia Higley, yes. Robert Hendrickson.
Yes.
Nancy Martin.
Yes.
Phil Kober.
Yes.
5 in favor, none opposed. None opposed. The motion carries. Good luck.
All right, thank you for your time.
Joy?
All right, and next is an informal discussion, 100 Bright Meadow Boulevard, information discussion to review project with the IWWA.
Yeah. Excuse me 1 minute, we have one person where, here he comes, he's
All right.
trying to hunt them down.
We have to share.
Oh.
That's all right. It's okay. Just name and address for the record, please.
Good evening.
That's okay.
Good evening. My name is John Furman. I'm the office manager for VHB in Springfield. To my right is Jeff Shamus, who is the director of our environmental services from our Weathersfield office. And to his right is Andy Borgia, who is the developer of the project that we're about to present to you. This is an informal discussion. What we were hoping to accomplish tonight was basically to present the project, have a general discussion on some impacts and some ideas that we have for mitigation, and just kind of get a input from the commission on if we're heading in the right direction or if we need to look at other items. So,
Excuse me real quick before we begin, because we have some new members on our commission. This is their first informal discussion. Just as a general rule of thumb, any applicant can ask for an informal discussion to review projects with permission of the chair. And it's non-binding on their application, so you don't have to worry about predetermination or being pre-biased. It's non-binding.
so I'm going to be presenting to the TV, but it's actually at your back, so I thought there was a TV back there, but... Oh, there you go. Ah, that's awesome. All right. So the project and site that we're looking at is actually the Mass Mutual property on 100 Bright Meadow Road. This is a picture of the original plan. Just to orient here, this is Interstate 91 here. This is Brainerd Road. The Brainerd Park, I believe, is this one right here. And this is actually a plan of Phoenix Mutual. Andy was very successful in researching records. Phoenix Mutual was the original developer of this site, so these plans are dated back in 1982. There was this one, which is phase 1, and then there was phase 2, which constructed the building that you know of today. Mass Mutual bought it and then added other areas to it. So some specifics about the existing additions. The site, the Mass Mutual site, which is what I've outlined in red here, generally, is about 65.5 acres. There is an additional property that is being considered as part of this project, which has been purchased. It's this parcel right here. That is an approximate 3.9 acres. So the total project area you're looking at is about 69.4 acres. There are existing wetlands on this site. Just going through the wetland limit and then kind of ending it at the property lines. There's about 10.2 acres of existing wetlands located on site today. As far as existing impervious areas, there's parking lots, and I'll show you those in a minute, buildings. All the impervious area totals to about 21.7 acres. So to start this project, we started with a existing conditions survey. VHB has been involved in this project for some time with MassMutual as a client. I believe we first entered in 2010, 2011, when we surveyed the property and helped MassMutual construct the parking garage, which I'm circling right now. So these two tan areas are buildings on site. There is one that I missed, which is right here. These blue areas are recent delineation. Jeff and his staff delineated this about 2 months ago. We picked all those up through GPS and had the survey, the property surveyed itself. The gray areas are existing paving. There is an area that I did not circle, which goes around the existing parking garage. There's a helipad here, and then that building and the parking lot in front. There is also paving along this side of the building. I did not shade that in because that's really being unaffected by this project. So moving ahead, what the project is a redevelopment of this property. MassMutual has ceased their operations there, and Andy is looking at constructing what we are calling a sports complex. These green areas that you see here are soccer fields, turf fields. There's 11 of them. You can see this is the existing MassMutual building right now. That will be repurposed as a hotel, a family entertainment center, and a restaurant. The existing parking garage will stay where it is. And we have 2 new buildings. It doesn't really show up well on the color, but this kind of pink color is a 141,000 square foot building that will house an indoor turf field and basketball courts. And this is a small maintenance building, 7,500 square feet. Over here, you can see the outline of a rectangle. Those are some proposed pickleball courts. So the site itself, stepping outside of areas of your jurisdiction for a minute, is well suited for this redevelopment. As an office building for MassMutual, this saw 3,000 cars a day for people coming in. We will see a fraction of that. It's got the infrastructure already set up for parking with the parking the parking deck. It's got a long access road. It's close to interstate. The intent is that this will be a regional center for sports activities. What we would be planning to do is, I'm going to go back one slide for a minute. The majority of the parking areas that you see here would be removed, and they would be replaced with these fields. It does have a wetland impact. There is 5 impacts. I'll give you those, approximately those areas. The first one I'm calling the area north of the proposed building. You can see just this area here. That's about 12,500 square feet. This area here is just a little finger that comes up. Calling that west of the new building, that's 1,900 square feet. The third area is a small area here. That's about 700 square feet. That one is kind of up for discussion. This is actually a small detention basin that was constructed for the stormwater management of the garage. Just due to lack of maintenance, it's turned into a wetland. It needs to be there for the garage. I think with some maintenance there, so I'm pretty sure we can discount that one. Plus, it's a small area. The larger one, which you see here, which I'm tracing out, I'm calling that the central wetland area. That's about 142,000 square feet, or about 3.2 acres. And the last one is a small finger here that is adjacent to the property that was purchased. And that is about 1,800 square feet. So on site, I had mentioned that the wetlands area totaled about 10.2 acres. all the impacts that we're showing here if we were allowed to develop this property. The proposed wetland removal is 3.65 acres, so we're reducing the 10.2 acres to about 6.5. So, so as far as the development of the project goes, that's kind of like where my discussion tonight ends with you. I'm going to turn it over to Jeff, and he's going to talk about the wetland areas, some history, and then some proposed mitigation that we have for items, and then we can open it up for some discussion, unless you have questions now. No? All right. Here you go,
Take
Jeff.
over the mouse.
Yep.
Good evening. So I'm Jeff Shamus, a certified soil scientist and ecologist with VHB. I wanted to, like as most sites I look at, I like to kind of learn the history of kind of what we're working with and how it got to be where it is. So I went back and looked at, let's see if we could zoom in here. Yeah. I think it's because of the that big map there. All right. So actually, you know, I'm going to jump down to the soil. So this is 1934. So the freshwater book, this is the overlay of Bright Meadow Boulevard here with some of the interior roads from present day. And the Waterworks Brook is back in this location, and basically what 1934 shows is essentially the entire site was open fields. I don't know if they farmed it. I don't know what they did here back then, but it wasn't forested. And when I was looking back at the soil parent material, unfortunately, I don't have those figures here tonight, but interestingly enough, and I'm going to jump down to the NRCS soils map for a second to give a better indication, is that this the soil here, and I'm sorry, my eyes can't see that, but I think it's 28B and 36B. Mm-hmm. Right, so this 26B is a glaciolacustrine stratified silt clay parent material that was mapped with by NRCS as an outwash soil, moderately well drained. This is in the area of the present day wetland, and so the soil material here is very fine, silty clay sand, very low permeability. So as the site was developed and stormwater from the parking lot and this parking garage through time, and we'll go back through some of the aerial photos, it started as a small wetland, and what it seems to me is that this area grew because of that low permeability, because of the consistency of the soil, because of the topography, where it just was an easy area to retain the surface water. And then over time, you end up with a situation where it's become a wetland system. And not a pro or con, I'm just saying from history, that's the way that I see this area growing from what John showed. I'm going to scoot back to the beginning. Right here on this first site plan, this is Bright Meadow Road coming in from the north, and you can see a small water course and a small depressional area. Back then, you know, the wetlands weren't delineated, so we don't know the exact extent, but looking at the topo, you know, going from 106 all the way up to 120 and 116 in a pretty short period of distance, you know, it looks relegated to a very small location. And then, let me just get back down here. Sorry, I know I'm jumping around, but I think just going back to some of these is important. And then, what we did was take that 1934, overlay today's wetlands, and you can see kind of where things laid out. There was a small ponded area, which we think is what was in that original one. And then as the site was developed, this is 1990, we see more, definitely more impervious surface, drainage, flowing into this area. It's starting to develop, still not forested, but there are some pines as there is today. And what is this, 2004? And you can see this Waterworks Brooks is still a nice forested riparian environment as well. This is starting to grow in as basically a meadow marsh area. 2019, you can see that Waterworks Brook is still very forested in its riparian environment. And then jumping from 2019, where we do have the garage, we do have that detention basin that's been identified as now a regulated wetland. You can see in Waterworks Brook, is what there's been beaver activity down here at Bright Meadow Boulevard, and it's created now a ponded environment from a riparian environment. And a couple of photos I will show you here shows the dead and dying trees from Bright Meadow Boulevard and the ponding water from the beaver activity, kind of changing this wetland community from a riparian, moving water to more of a ponded open water environment. And, the beaver is going to, if it remains, will succeed in changing this community over to more of an open water habitat. And so I can't remember, oh yeah, we do have, so getting into, actually I'm gonna go back up here. Getting into what we're talking about for the development and mitigation, again, these are concepts and we wanted to discuss with you tonight, is the applicant, Andy, is proposing to donate to the town, and I don't have the exact acreage, but there is a trail that continues off of Brainerd Park along the property line and on this Mass Mutual property going down to the brook. There's a decent acreage in here that can be donated to the town for the park, for part of the passive recreation. Another part would be to remove the beaver dam and have this restored back to a riparian environment. And then lastly is to donate funds enough to cover freshwater pond every 5 years. I understand the town has to dredge this out, and so they would be willing to pay for the dredging of the pond in terms of off-site mitigation to compensate for the on-site impacts. Those are the concepts. That's the kind of the plan that we have at the moment, and all I have at this time.
So if I could just add a little bit more. From a drainage perspective, going back to the 1982 plan, the area that Jeff had identified here as the beginning of the wetland, you can see that as part of the project, this drain line was installed. So it basically was draining this area. Everything drained to this low point, collected it, as well as drainage from Brainerd Road. This flows in a northerly direction and basically outlets into the culvert that goes underneath I-91. That drain is still there today. However, when you look at we've compared the elevations of the contours to the elevations that we have currently, and they're very close. There's top of this landscape area is elevation 126, and that's what we actually surveyed as well. When you compare the invert elevations of what this pipe was set at as to what the pipe is today, this pipe is actually higher today. So what it looks like is as this area was developing and plugging up and filling up, that pipe kept having to be reworked higher because it got filled in. We're not seeing elevation 106 in that depression anymore. This is clearly and as it was doing that, it was backing up water and then combining that with the soil characteristics that Jeff had mentioned is a perfect recipe for creating wetlands. Mass Mutual came around and designed that large parking lot expansion, and which is right here. All of this water outlet into this wetland. You can see the drainage pipe here. The garage came along, or actually, I'm not sure which one was which first, whether it was the parking lot or the garage. I think the parking lot may have been first. The garage comes along. All the water from the garage has 2 exit points. Each of them has a small little stilling basin, and then they overflow into this wetland. So this wetland is growing because it is receiving water from parking areas, from impervious surfaces. And it's looking at how it started. It's not again, completely speaking out of turn, this is Jeff's bailiwick, but it is not a pristine wetland that has a water course feeding it. It's basically being fed by the parking areas. And coupling that with what we see as the benefit to redeveloping this site for something that's family-oriented, sports-oriented project like this, we are actually looking for the commission to kind of give us some guidance on. We understand that the wetland replication that we're asking for is large, and we're just looking for guidance to see what the commission feels, and if we're barking up the right tree, so to speak, as far as the mitigation package.
I just have one other point I wanted to make. I forgot to mention in terms of looking at the soils here. Let's see. The one last piece I'll leave you with is I looked at the state's prime farmland soils and looked at a bunch of other data. And what I found, and I thought was very interesting, is that this soil type, where the wetland is and beyond, it's where the building is as well. In addition, this excessively drained soil, these both were considered, well, the 28B, this one was considered prime farmland in the state. And then this 36B was considered important soils to the state. Now, I don't believe there's any NRCS soils in the state that's mapped as prime farmland that's wetland, nor is this soil type considered wetland by NRCS. And we know when we go out to sites as soil scientists, these are only guidelines, and we always come up with different boundaries because this is from a much larger view using mostly remote sense data. So, and most of the time when farmers farm their land, they try to drain wetlands because they can't get crops to grow on them. So it's just another, tick point as to how this area got created. It makes sense that it has become a wetland because it's retained more water from the influences around it. But I don't believe that originally the moderately well-drained soils in this area, started out their life as wetlands. It's been developed over time to support the inputs that it's receiving. That's it.
Thank you.
Are the fields going to be live turf or artificial turf?
Artificial, synthetic.
So how does that affect drainage with those? I'm not familiar.
The drainage, as you all know, is a function of impervious surfaces. So the existing site as it exists today has 21.7 acres of impervious, that's building and parking areas. Under this project, that pervious reduces to 10.5 acres. So we're basically removing half of the impervious area that's already there. The soccer fields themselves have an engineered drainage system, so they are permeable. Water will go through it. There is kind of a, for lack of a better word, a fishbone drainage design underneath it that leads to perimeter drains on the outside, which are perforated, and then dry wells, which all of which recharge water. The fishbone type design is basically intended to pull water away. They have some slope to it, but you're infiltrating them on the sides. So the soccer fields themselves would be self-contained, and again, we have to design the drainage systems themselves to support this. So the soccer fields themselves would be self-contained as far as drainage goes. The parking areas, mostly when you look at the existing conditions, all drained to this area here. There is a separate drainage system that kind of comes around the building and goes into this area here. This circular parking lot in front drains to this area. Underneath it, you can actually see it a little better here. This is the existing building, and then there's a parking area here. That is about 31,000 square feet in total. So a quarter of this building, this new building, could actually take the place of the impervious that is there now and continue to drain to this wetland, and that wetland would not see any difference because it vanished. The existing parking garage, this small basin and this basin are the two stormwater features going back to the original design VHB did of what was installed to mitigate the stormwater. So our intent would be to basically enlarge those and duplicate something in this area here, and then outlet into the pipe that is here, which I mentioned before, that existing pipe. That, because this central wetland, that pipe is right here. This water goes through that pipe and goes into this area here. So by keeping this the same, that water will go to that area. Again, it won't see any difference. The only issue, or the only portion of this development that we really have to worry about stormwater is 3/4 of the area of this building, or about 110,000 square feet. So our intent on that would be to construct something in this area where the helipad is. That's all going to be removed. Have it infiltrate, and then it's a very high area there, and it's an area where the soils are actually not too bad. And then have that outlet into the upland area of this wetland, which would then go into that brook here. Our intent would be that we would set up design points within the site based on the drainage areas. We feel very confident that because we're removing so much impervious surface and we are infiltrating so much more water now, that the flow rates and volumes at those design points will be less than what they are today. So we're very confident in that, because it's not often that we get a site where we have the thing almost paved and we're taking it away. That just rarely happens. So this is actually kind of a unique project.
I have a question. In reference to field number 9, 10, and 11, I'm just thinking, is there any other place on the site that those fields could go, or is 8 fields not enough for this complex? I mean, I just think it's a lot of fields. I understand the business aspect of it, and you're trying to have it, to be a perhaps tournament related. I don't know exactly, but it just seems that that's impacting it significantly, whether it's developed over time or not. It's still a wetland area, so that's what I'm asking about that.
So Andy will tell you that in order for the program to work and be financially viable, he needs 12 fields. So we have 11, and then we ended up putting one in the building. You'll also notice to try and squeeze them in. The other layouts that we have unbelievable amount of concepts that we've done for this to try and fit these
What's the
anywhere.
red? This to the left? What's?
This is the church.
Oh.
That's not our property.
Sorry, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the other designs that we had, this is, I believe, a 40-foot aisle between the fields, and we had that aisle on this site here. So in order to get this to work and fit, Andy has come up with a concept where you can see we've removed it between these fields, and a temporary fence would go up in between them. So we're basically, by doing that, we saved 80 feet over the width of the development. So we are, if you look at the red line, with that being our property line, we're pretty close to what we can do. There's just, we're trying to fit this building in as well. So we have this area here, which is buffer, but it's got a pretty decent slope to it. We've got this area here, which is a helipad. We're already thinking about doing stormwater there. The garage is existing. This is all existing. We need this area for parking to support the hotel and access to that garage. This is slated for an outdoor kind of a picnic area for as people come in. These are commissary buildings where they can get some food, and then this will be kind of almost like a little courtyard where they can sit and relax while their children or whoever are playing. And we have the pickleball court. So you can see we're pretty constrained on what we have as far as site goes. Some of the other concepts that we have done is we've looked at trying to work with the town to redevelop Brainerd Park, putting some of these fields on that parcel. It's not shown on this plan over here, but basically extending it over to here, and then in exchange for a lease on that, redeveloping the park and rebuilding it with all new equipment and doing everything else. That apparently just never went anywhere, so we walked away for that. So we're kind of constrained to the parcel that we have. There's just no other land, other than the church that's there. It's already developed.
So one of the thoughts I'll throw out there, I know for some of the commercial properties where there is wetland removal, one of the factors that we've done is like a wetland recreation, like an artificial wetland. I know you talked about mitigation. Obviously, you guys have some plans for like donating the land and trying to clear that brook to make it flow again. Have you guys thought about that? Do you think there's a way to incorporate that? I mean, again, you did bring up it's kind of constrained, but is there any room you guys think for an artificial wetland or recreation or something to make up for that lost wetland?
That's one of the things that I've thought about is where could we look at restoring, enhancing, and then creating. Unless we took, some of the forested riparian areas of, the watercourse comes down off of Brainerd Park through that wetland corridor running north and then hits the brook and then flows south. I hate to have to take down some nice upland communities and then excavate down to create that wetland, because you need the uplands for the wildlife, and we're, with the development that's there, but also what's proposed, it's nice to have that forested buffer. So that's why, looking off-site to town properties or other, ideas, I'm certainly open to. I don't want to kind of force something where it doesn't really feel like it needs to happen.
even some rain garden pockets, in some of there, I think that would be good. One concern, kind of when you talked about doing the dredging and paying for that, in my mind, my concern is what happens if this changes hands or it doesn't work out. We've now taken away the wetlands and we have nothing. So that, I don't like the idea of that myself.
There could be conditions where, certain steps are taken before other steps are taken to create the leverage that you need, to ensure that the wetlands aren't going to be filled and then nothing happens. But just throw it out there.
Could you go over the additional permitting beyond the town?
Yeah. So in addition to going through the town, we have Army Corps that we're going to have to deal with.
Sure.
And Army Corps permit is a little different when you're talking about wetland impacts because they have both mitigation, compensatory mitigation, where they look at restoring, enhancing, creating on-site as much as possible, and then looking off-site. But they also have in lieu fee. And I believe in this watershed, it's like $10 and change a square foot of impact. So you can take that in combination of other mitigation efforts to get your compensatory mitigation package. But it's another permitting body that we have to go through that is not going to be easy. And it's an individual permit, most likely, process. So, that's another.
Yeah, I mean, I think, obviously this is going to have to be a public hearing, without a doubt, and that's I think a harder sell. That's a very hard sell. We're going to pay you to get rid of the wetlands, but that a lot of people could see it that way. So I think coming up with some plans to recreate wetlands, like Commissioner Colbert says, and doing something like that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and certainly we're not. I mean, the in lieu fee won't even be brought up in terms of the public hearing here. It's that's a separate federal process. But the
you've already
pond
brought
dredging.
it up, so too late.
Yeah, but it's part of a different process. Here, this is the offsite pond dredging that we're talking about, and then some on-site, restoration of the brook, enhancement. We can certainly take a harder look at some of the areas of the wetlands and see if there's the ability to do anything else out there with an eye, for restoration.
Yeah, even the new gas station going in right up the road, that they did a great job with that, recreating that, and and it's not a huge space, but it's very well done. So.
And with the amount that we're talking about for impact, it takes more than just one thing. So certainly looking at multitude of options are favorable.
We did just some preliminary numbers in this area here, which is all upland. If you were to kind of trace this line and then hold off this building 25 feet, come straight across, that's about 100,000 square feet.
Yeah.
And vertically, it's about 35 feet from the top to the bottom.
Okay.
So you're basically creating a cliff and taking all that down. And you're only getting 100,000 square feet out of it.
And part of that mitigation would be to donate that section along that water course so that Brainerd Park is extended down to the brook itself. Yeah.
Yeah, so just
Go ahead,
just some other general comments I think too. So and you kind of talked about it with the impervious surfaces. I think that this, when the stormwater plan is created and that's generated. I think that's going to be a huge piece of this as to, you know, what are the changes, where's the water draining? You know, we talked about the soccer fields and how that's going to percolate out. So I think, you know, in terms of us as an agency, I think that's going to be a huge factor, you know, looking at that, the, you know, current state of stormwater runoff to the end state, where's the water going, you know, flow rate, stuff like that. Again, generally speaking, I think another consideration that we look at is, you know, with the wetlands, you know, obviously undeniably there's going to be destruction of wetlands. So one of the things we'll probably weigh is the value of the wetlands. And you kind of hinted on where the fields is, you know, that may have been created and enlarged by the parking lot, you know, but the one farther north is obviously based off that brook. So, you know, wildlife, plants and animals that may be affected. You know, if you guys haven't studied that yet, maybe having that information ready to go, and then that'll play into the, you know, the mitigation and enhancement opportunities.
I like that you're putting most of the fields where the parking lot was. The parking lot had chemicals, you know, the cars had spills and they had chemicals for the snow removal and ice. So I like that the fields are there, and because they're synthetic turf, you won't have to put any chemicals on the grass to grow it. So I think that's a very good point that you're doing.
Thank you.
Do these type of fields have the rubber pellets in them?
I'm going to flip that over to Andy too.
They do? Okay.
I had a question on the proposed building to the north there. Could that not come down and be attached to the parking garage, getting it out of the wetlands?
We looked at that. The fire department requires a separation distance between them. That's why we're further away. We have a concept that has it right against it.
Yeah.
Is there going to be, besides the current entrance, it's obviously going to be utilized, is there going to be any other entrances? I mean, I'm assuming there'll probably still be like an emergency entrance maybe to Brainerd Road, but there's not going to be any other vehicular traffic or any
No,
other thing?
we're intending to keep the main entrance to be Bright Meadow. It's set up for way more traffic than we'll see. But as part of the design moving forward, we will have other access points from an emergency purpose. You know, if something happens and the EMTs have to get to, you know, field 4, we really don't want to have them drive to the campus. We probably cut a gate through and right from Brainerd. So we have to look at all of that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you all for your time. I realize it's been a long evening, and really the information that you gave us is valuable. And we're going to go away now and figure out how we how we make this work, and we'll be back. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right. Do we have any enforcement reports?
Nothing to report right now.
And we have new application to receive, IW number 684.
Is there any update on some of the stuff we had last meeting?
No, I know today Rick went out to site to 72 Shaker for the junkyard violation. I can't remember off the top of my head what the outcome of that was, but I'm sure there'll be an update for you guys about that the next meeting.
The vehicle being removed also, is that the one?
Did he get it out?
Yeah, we talked about that the last meeting. The truck was removed from the wetlands on 9 Manning.
I thought there was one more. There was one left that they were going out to look at.
Yeah.
I don't have an update on that one.
All right, again, new application to receive, IW number 684, 210 Moody Road, application for a subdivision. Top Knot LLC, applicant owner, map 100, lot 11, I-1 zone. Any miscellaneous?
Nope.
Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
What time is it?
The time is 8:57.